Okay, welcome to Spirituality Simplified. I'm so excited about this week's episode, which is all about tarot cards. And I'm super excited. It's a very special episode this week because this is our first guest on the show. And we have the lovely Francesco Salomoni hailing from New York City. So I'm so honored and blessed to have Francesco with us today because he is the tarot expert and he is the number one guide to love and career in the Big Apple. And he's the founder of Tarot of New York. So I'm so excited. Thank you. Welcome, Francesco, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here today. This is going to be a lot of fun and I'm already excited. So
Yay,
I'm
good.
always I'm always happy to talk about tarot in every medium possible. So this is going to be good. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, we had a show a couple weeks ago on Oracle cards, and I had mentioned briefly tarot, but it's not my expertise. It's not, I mean, I play with them and work with them with clients and everything, but it's definitely not my forte. So I'm so excited you're on today because this is your expertise, and we are so excited to hear all of your knowledge. And, again, this is Spirituality Simplified. So you can help us simplify tarot so anybody can use them. So excited. Thank you again.
Yes, wonderful.
So I'd like to just start and ask about you. Tell us about your story. How did you start working with tarot cards?
So I received my first tarot deck when I was about 12 from a family friend. And that was, I think, because I was doing play readings with playing cards. And I always felt very intuitively the symbols calling me. So this friend said, "Hey, you should try tarot and see how that goes." And I was like, "Okay, I don't know what that is, but let's do it."
Yeah.
And so I got this Marseille deck, which was very uh, weird and difficult and scary. And so I didn't go very far with it. But I kept playing around with it for, ever since. And, tarot has been with me throughout my whole life. And eventually I found a deck that was a little easier to work with. And, and I started working with the Rider-Waite deck for
Mhm.
many, many years on the side. And yeah, I always found it very helpful when I was going through phases and difficult decisions. And so I always found that was a very valuable tool. And so, and I did it on the side also for friends, for family, and then I started, friends of friends. And so word got out a little bit. And so
Mhm.
random people started calling. And it came to a point a few years ago when I started feeling that in my regular job, I was okay, I was happy, but it wasn't really feeling like I was contributing much. I mean, I was doing something fun, something good, making money, okay, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled.
Mhm.
And so I had this urge to maybe start doing tarot full time, but and never felt that it was like a serious thing to do or like a real job or anything like that. So, so I asked for a sign. If I'm meant to do this, and let's do it right, and I need to have proof that this is what I'm meant to do. Otherwise, there's no point. And the same day, I got the sign. So the sign was that I was walking down the street, went for a walk in Little Italy, and I was walking outside this house and the man comes out and he calls me and said, "Did you ring the bell?" And I'm like, "No, I did not." And he said, "Well, my dog came to call me and I thought somebody rang the bell. So I thought somebody was here." I thought, "Well, not really." But anyway, we start talking and this was an older man. And so we start talking a little bit and it comes out that it was Frank Andrews, which one of the most famous celebrity psychic tarot reader in New York City for the past 60 plus years. And so
Wow.
So that was really interesting. And so we talk, and I was like, well, I read cards, and it's like, okay, we should have tea. And so one thing led to another, and I said, well, I know you are, and I would be honored if you would, mentor me, or, see if I'm on the right path. And then since that day, we've been talking almost weekly and exchanging ideas and stories, and that was my sign. So,
That's amazing. Wow. That's such a great story because we talk a lot about on this podcast about like spiritual awakenings. And that was kind of one of the
hmm
reasons I started this, is because with everything going on this year and the earth is ascending and getting closer to source, the people, the beings on the planet are also ascending, and people are having more and more spiritual awakenings all over the place. And so it's people are kind
hmm
of opening up to that channel. So that's so cool that and I love that you asked for a sign too, because that's something we've talked about too. Um, did you ask like just the universe for a sign, or do you work with angels or spirit
It
guides?
was, well, yes, I don't remember exactly. I remember that there was this urge to get a sign because I wanted proof.
Right. Yes,
But I
absolutely.
don't remember exactly if it was, because I do talk with my angels through a diary. And so, but I don't remember if that's what I did, or if it was just like calling out to the
Yeah.
universe. And so one of the two,
Wow.
probably.
That's amazing. Well, that's a great, I mean, there you go. You got your answer. It's pretty clear.
It couldn't have been. It couldn't have been clearer than that. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. What's interesting too? So you mentioned that somebody had given you a deck, and there's kind of this folklore around tarot cards that you have to have, be given a deck to be able to use tarot. Have you heard of that before?
I did, and it is not true.
Yeah. I was just kind of
So it
interesting.
just
Yeah.
I it just happened that to me that happened. And by the way, that deck was stolen from my apartment years later, so that's really
Interesting.
interesting.
Yeah. Hmm.
So well, I don't know
Yeah,
if that
that's
was
just
another
funny.
sign.
I've heard, I feel like do you feel like tarot has kind of evolved, as the years have progressed? Like I feel like there was this kind
hmm
of secrecy, kind of like, I don't know, almost like this like secret club, like you have to be gifted tarot cards, and it's like, I feel like that's kind of all kind of broken. Like that's not in effect anymore. Like I feel like it's a lot more open, and like there's more um, we're being more encouraged to work with spirit and work with divination tools such
hmm
as tarot cards. Do you feel that way as well?
Well, yes, of course, it's much more popular, much more used, is more in the open.
Hmm.
It's used now. They started to use it in psychoanalysis as well, so as a therapy
Oh,
tool. So imagine that. From
wow. Oh my, I didn't
even
know that.
doctors are using that. So it's
Awesome.
much more accepted. It's not like the woo-woo thing anymore.
Right.
Really, it's just like.
Yep.
So yeah, and it has evolved in its use, and also, there are so many decks now that are coming out on all
Mhm.
kinds, all kind of designs, and so
Yeah.
I am partial to traditional design, but that's my preference.
Hmm.
But uh, I mean, there's like very, very modern ones that are really, really nice. So.
Yeah, I know I've seen some decks, and like the illustrations are just beautiful, and it seems like the people are kind of, I mean, and you can confirm this, but every tarot is going to be the same structure, but maybe the way people interpret it is a little different, or I know they like the drawings are different. Like there's just so many different types now. What are
Mhm.
your thoughts on that?
So there's a lot of different ones for sure, but most of them are derivatives of either the Marseille style or the Rider-Waite style. And
Interesting.
so in a way, they either belong to one of these two families. The way of reading them is slightly different,
Mm.
but you know, not that much. And if you think about it, well, the Marseille style is actually, it's called Marseille, but it originated in northern Italy. So
Oh, interesting.
and then migrated to France. But one of the original decks that I'm going to show, I have a copy here, was actually made painted in northern Italy
Oh, wow. Those are
and
beautiful.
for the Sforza family
Oh, okay.
in the 15th century.
Wow.
So this is the oldest documented tarot deck in existence, and
Wow.
there's the originals are, some are here in New York and some are in Italy, I believe, in a museum. So
Wow.
and then from this they went to France and they started printing these, the Marseille
Oh,
style,
okay. I've
which
seen
is,
those on your
very kind of medieval looking designs.
yeah.
It's
And they're
kind
all
of,
the same colors, which is interesting.
yeah, the colors are very, very similar, like three colors,
Yeah.
because printing was probably not that easy to do in multiple colors.
Mm.
So they kept
Yeah.
it simple. And there's all kind of school of thoughts about the meanings of the colors and how many colors, but that's a whole different
Right.
kind of worms that is
Yeah.
beyond the scope of our conversation, I think. And
Right.
so, and there's different then designs that came up a little bit later, like this is more clearly later
Yeah.
characters, the costumes are later, a little more defined,
Yeah.
the design, but it's the same style. See, not
So
all the cards
interesting.
have full pictures.
Huh.
So,
Wow.
and then there's one more that is kind of hard to find now. It's pretty rare. It's a Swiss design.
Oh.
And the peculiarity of this one is that, see, in the Marseille deck, they have characters like the Pope, uh, and back then there was a problem with the church. So to go around that, they didn't want to have any character that was involved with the church. So instead of for example, the high priestess in the Rider Waite is the papess in the Marseille, and then they put instead Juno.
Oh,
They
interesting.
went completely another way, and instead of the Pope, they have Jupiter.
Oh, well, that's so
So
interesting.
they got around that because persecutions and things, they didn't want to get involved in so
Oh
much in
my
that. But so they got around it like that. Anyway, and then we have the later on in the Victorian era, they designed the Rider Waite, which is the classic that most people use and start with, and most modern designs are derived from. So
God. Mm-hmm.
that's that was like in the 1900s.
Wow.
So
That's really interesting. I feel like that's one thing I think maybe a lot of people would resonate with is that there is such rich history with tarot cards.
mhm.
And you hear so many different stories. I didn't know anything about any of those decks. I mean, I've only learned about the Rider Waite deck, and that's fascinating. I mean, and even the Rider Waite deck has a lot of history and interesting facts too. So that might
Yes.
be something people are interested in. I think that's like maybe what piques a lot of people's interest in the first place in tarot cards. So
Mhm.
that's really fascinating. Awesome.
The characteristic of this, that every card has a drawing, a picture that
Mhm.
is easy to, well, easy, I don't know, but
They're
they
complex if
can
you want
be
it to be.
interpreted intuitively in a way if you want. Instead, the other ones that only, for example, the two of wands here, and the other one it has only two sticks, and so you figure out what that means.
Right. Exactly. So
But mhm.
like, can you just describe like what is tarot? Like if you were gonna just explain that to somebody who's never heard of it. Well, how would you
Yes.
explain tarot? It might be a hard question, but
So I would describe tarot. Tarot is a book. There is one person that I spoke with years ago, and we were talking about this, and she was like, "If I had to be left on a desert island with only one thing, I would want a tarot deck because that will give me all the information that I need and all the entertainment that I need. It's a
yes.
book, it's a book of stories, it's a book of knowledge, and it's a spiritual book as well. So
Mhm.
there's it tells stories, and the stories are constantly updated depending on what is happening in the life of the person that is reading it. So it's a
Wow.
fascinating
Yes, I
tool.
love that. I love that. It is like a story because it's and
Mhm.
so tell us how it's kind of broken down. So like you have the major arcana and the minor and kind of how does
So
that fit into the story?
a deck is composed of 78 cards, and there's 22 major arcana that are um, like the Pope that we talked
Mhm,
about before, and like the stars and
mhm.
other characters. And those are also called to represent the fool's journey. And it's not like because you're a fool doing the journey, but it's because the journey of life is where you start from the beginning and you go through all the experiences in life. So these 22 major arcana walk you through all experiences in life from beginning, middle, and end, and
Mhm.
then back again. So
Right.
it is usually those are read as with a more spiritual meaning in in the readings.
Mhm.
And then we have the other ones, then the minors, which are like, like 10 of wands, cups, and things like that. And those are more used for day-to-day descriptions of what is happening. It's like more practical on the, on down on earth.
Right. Gotcha. And so each of those in the minor, they're related to like a deck of playing cards. Like cups
Yes.
would be like hearts. And
Yes.
let's see, what is swords? That would be
Swords would be spades,
spades. Yes.
and wands would be, is it called diamonds? The little
Yes. Yes.
square things.
Okay. Yep.
So yeah, so yeah, and then well, coins, pentacles or coins. No, I get it wrong. Wands are the flowers.
the clubs.
The
Right.
clubs, yes,
Yes. Yes. Okay.
yes, and then the pentacles are the diamonds. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because it's
Hmm.
so because each suit kind of represents something different. So like if you take like the cups, that's usually like emotions, right? And
Yes.
yeah, so what are the different
Feelings. So cups would be feelings, relations between people, love, anything to do with that. And then pentacles is money, but also practical things in life and, you know, day-to-day things. It's also any type of asset or any type of, richness or things like that. Ones are usually business or work. Also, they represent fire energy. So when they come up in a reading, they can represent, you know, things getting pretty heated.
yeah.
Or-
That's good to know.
and then in, and then swords are usually problems.
Mm,
Um, Problems, and they have to deal with communication as well. So, and, you know, and it depends on how the reading goes. You have to see how they play together with the other cards. So
okay, because that was
did
kind
I
of what I was
miss anything?
thinking.
Mhm.
Um, yes, I think we got them all.
Okay.
Because that's they have like these different meanings, and so the way that you would interpret it is probably a mix of intuition, maybe, and how the cards relate to each other. What else is going on in the spread? Is that right?
Hmm. That's absolutely correct. Depends on the spread that you do.
Hmm.
You assign a meaning on to the position where the card is located, and then depending on how what card shows up in that position, you have something happening, and then it depends what's coming before, what's coming after. So they can be read by themselves,
Hmm.
but they give a much better picture if they are read together.
Hmm.
It's like a whole,
Right. Yeah, that
because
makes
they
sense.
tend to interact with each other a lot. So
Right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It gives you
they're
the
very
story,
social.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Um, so why would somebody want to use tarot cards?
So tarot cards are very useful to tap into somebody's subconscious. Um, for example, if I pull a card one day, I may not be completely aware of something that is happening in my life that day. And then I pull a card, and that card shows me something. And by looking at it, I understand that that is happening. And so things are happening. So,
Right, yeah.
so that's also if, for example, um, a lot of times you can do pull a card to see because I don't feel very well today. I want to see what's happening, and
Hmm.
maybe there's something that comes up and say, "Oh, because I got into an argument with my brother yesterday and we didn't make up. So
Yep.
we need to resolve that. Otherwise, things are not moving on." So
Right.
um,
So it kind of brings your subconscious to your awareness, your conscious awareness.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So I find
correct.
that too. Like, whatever you think is going on is usually not the case. And like the cards will tell you that. It's like your true self talking to you,
Yes,
saying, okay, this is what's really going on beneath the surface that you need to pay attention to.
yes.
And it's
And
most
sometimes we don't want to
likely,
see that.
right, exactly. Yep. It's so interesting how that always works. And do you find too when you're doing readings for people that they may ask one question, but then something else completely different comes up in the reading? Like maybe they're
Um,
asking us something different. Like,
Sometimes, for example, if they ask just for a general reading,
hmm.
what comes up is the situation that is most affecting them at
Hmm.
that time.
Hmm.
So it may not be something that they're thinking about right at that moment, but it's something that once we start looking into it, we say, oh, yeah, that's happening. And that's usually the most urgent thing that needs to be taken care of.
Hmm. Yeah. I find that that happens all the time. You're like, oh,
Mhm.
well, that's not really, you asked this, but this is coming up. So this is what's really needing to be addressed.
Yes, and then they may ask a question, a very specific question, and things come up that are related to the question, but they may
Mhm.
also indicate, yes, this has to do with it, but there's also this that is connected to it. So, you know,
Right. Yes, absolutely. That makes sense. And in terms of, so we kind of touched on like how they work, but like how would you describe that? Like how would you say, there's a magic to it, of course. Like is it I mean, you could, like you said, you could just play the cards and look at the symbols and literally just have it as this. But there is that spiritual component to it. Like how would you describe that?
so once you start making a connection with the cards, and it's almost a dialogue that happens.
Mhm.
For example, and not it doesn't work exactly the same with all decks. For example, for me, this one is called
Mhm.
the Ancient Italian. It's one version of the Marseille, but I feel that the characters are very talkative, are very, very expressive. So if I do a meditation one day and I pull a card, for example, the Justice here, it you know starts a whole dialogue about all kind of things that are happening, and it's really helpful on not just on a practical level, but also on a spiritual level, a better understanding of things. And I find it a very fascinating practice.
Yeah. Oh
So,
yeah. Like I always tell
mm,
people the cards never lie. Like and people are like,
no,
"Whoa,"
yeah.
like it's totally fascinating and they're always
Hmm.
spot on.
Yeah. So I think as a spiritual tool, they bring you down to what is really important,
Mhm.
and that creates a growth. So I
Yeah.
think that's they're a growth tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Um Now we talked about this. We had the Oracle card episode a
Yes.
couple weeks ago. So how would you say? Well, like, what do you think is the difference between Oracle cards versus tarot cards?
So Oracle decks, I don't use them, but they are more, I would say that they don't have a definite structure. They're
Mhm.
more open, more free. So
Yeah.
there's not a definite number of cards in it. It could be 10, it could be 100, and everything in between. Um, Tarot card is 78 cards.
Mhm.
The whole book is there. There's nothing to add, nothing to take away.
Right.
So, and it's almost like it's all like if you think about it, has, for example, tarot card is the letters that you put in the print machine to write a book. The
Mm.
oracle card is like, okay, I give you the book, or I give you already the movie that we made from the book.
Oh, that's such a good way to describe it. I love that. That's fascinating.
Mhm.
That's awesome. So this kind of more like Oracle kind of is like big picture, whereas tarot,
Yeah,
you kind of get into the nitty gritty. Like, here's what's really going on.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Get into the details, all the
Hmm.
little things, and then yeah, why this accent is written like this instead of like that, And then,
Awesome. So, how would you describe to somebody who's never used tarot cards? Like, what is the process? Like, how would you like from going and purchasing your deck and then coming
Mhm.
home and you mentioned once you form a connection. So, like, how would you recommend people form that connection? Like, what's the process that you do and you recommend for people?
So I would say first thing to do when you open the deck, you can scroll through. There's a little booklet usually inside. You can scroll through that and get extremely confused, and so resist the temptation of throwing it away or putting it on the shelf and never look at it again. Just forget about the little book. And one thing that I always suggest people to do is take out the major arcana, and one every day, spend about 5 to 10 minutes just looking at that card. And you can go in order or not. It's really up to the person, and see how that card, what emotions come out looking at the card, what ideas, visions, if anybody's prone to visions, or suggestions or any type of thought. And then at the end of the day, see how what happened through the day applies to what we saw, thought about looking at that card.
Mhm.
And that's a great way to make a strong connection with the cards. And I think it is much easier to do that with the Rider Waite, because you can also do it with the other cards, not just with the major, but you can later on do it with the minors as well, because they have pictures, and stories are a little easier to come up with, so, and to understand.
Mhm.
So that's a very good way. It takes a little bit of time, but
Yeah.
but then the connection is there, and then once you do a reading, everything starts to make sense a lot more easily and quickly. So
Okay. Yeah, that's a great idea. Um, and so like, would you recommend too, I mean, because you mentioned the little book, like I know it's interesting, like with especially like the Rider Waite, that's the one I've had the most experience with. And the booklet
Mhm.
is just terrible, right? Like Oracle cards, actually, the booklets are pretty good, but for tarot cards, you just throw that away and just go kind of purely on intuition. Or do you like, are there places that you recommend going to learn about the tarot cards, like their meanings? I mean, are there specific books or websites that you recommend?
So, well, for the Rider Waite, I would invite the people to just go and by what they feel is usually a good way to read it as a deck. That works
Mhm.
very well. A lot of people do it professionally, do that exactly that, and they're very successful. So there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if somebody would like to start reading a deck like the Marseille, well, that doesn't work very well because 9 cups on a white card don't tell you too
Right.
big of a story. It's kind of like harder to. And so there are books that explain a little bit more of the meanings, but I find them that there's as many definitions as people that write books. So it's kind of like tricky there.
Yeah.
And so the way I did it, um, is actually one of my teachers that
Mhm.
that we went through that, and he had a book that it's out of print, so I don't even know how to suggest it. But yeah, and so uh, that's kind of hard for that. It's better if somebody gives you somebody that reads it gives you like a cheat sheet,
Mhm.
which can help. But for example, how do you come up from, again, the 9 of cups came up again, I guess it's stuck.
Yeah.
uh,
And what does
and
that mean?
how do you, for example, one of the meanings of this card is
Mhm.
wishes granted in a happy way. How do
Hmm.
you come up with that meaning from looking at this?
Right.
I don't know. Maybe there's a big party where everybody's happy and there's cups of wine on the table. I don't know, but
Hmm. Sounds good to me. Sounds like a
but
party.
there's mm, it's kind of tricky there. So
Mhm. Yeah.
if you wanna, but there's a lot of books. There's plenty of books, and I think that when the person find the right one, they will know,
Yeah.
and it's a little different for everybody. So
Mhm.
I don't have a particular one to suggest.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. So, okay, so you get your cards,
Mhm.
and there's always, different ways that you can shuffle and like cut the deck. Like, what do you recommend? So you get them, you shuffle them up. Do you lay them out all and then just have like, if let's say you're doing a reading, let's just say you're doing a one for yourself, because that's what
Mhm.
most people listening would probably be doing.
Yes.
So do you just lay them out and pick one that you resonate with, or like what's your process for the shuffling and picking of the cards?
So I usually shuffle them like this,
Hmm.
and then I make 3 piles,
Hmm.
and then I shuffle each pile, and then I put them back together in probably a different order, and then I start picking out the cards. And depends what type of reading I'm doing.
Hmm.
Can be as simple as want to make a decision. I really don't know what to do, so I make maybe a 3 card spread just to figure out the likely outcomes of my decisions. Or if I want to see, for example, I do sometimes a reading for the week, and so I pull out 7 cards, and this is what's going to happen this week.
Ah, that's a good one. I like that
And
one.
so, but
Now,
the,
do
the
you?
shuffling process is usually the same. I just do go like this, and then make the 3 piles, and then take it from there. uh,
Okay.
that's one way. When I read with a client, uh, sometimes we do that, and then maybe I do a fan out of the cards, and I let them pick
Mhm.
cards from there. And so that's another way of doing it. That's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Now when you're doing the weekly 7 day, do you turn them all over, or do you just every day do you go and turn it over
Oh
and
no, I
see?
do it right away because
Oh,
I have no
okay.
patience.
Yeah.
But
You're like, no, I need to know right now.
I want to know what's yeah.
That's funny. Now, do you find when you do that, no, this is something I talked about too, how, we all have free will, right? Like this is the current, whatever reading you get is the current energy that you have
Mhm.
going on. So do you find that things change as you go throughout the week because there's, you make different choices, or maybe you go a different path, and maybe that last card doesn't really resonate when you get to,
Mhm.
does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So the cards tell a story based on what is happening at the moment of the reading.
Hmm.
Now, if you don't like the outcome, which happens a lot,
Yeah.
you can make changes. Like if you don't do anything, this is what's going to happen. But if you don't like what is going to happen, well, go and make peace with the person that you had an argument before.
Right.
Send, flowers to the person that you like instead of waiting maybe to something to happen because not, so you
Yes.
can make changes to change the outcome. So it's not
Yes.
set in stone that, oh, this is happening for sure. Yeah,
Right.
if you don't do anything about it, yes.
Yes.
But for example, if we do a reading and say, will I find a job? Photo, well, yes. If tomorrow you go out and apply for the job, yes. But if you just say, stay home and watch TV, well, no, you're not getting the job. You need to go out and
Right.
apply for it.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, that's why I think like the tarot is so cool and it can be so helpful in everyday life, is because it shows you what's, what the outcome could be if you're on the path that you're currently on. Like this is what's
mhm,
going to happen. So it helps you to see like, okay, either I'm on the right track, or no, I need to course correct and do something a little different. So that's
right.
why I feel like tarot is so powerful in that regard. Now just a quick question too.
Yes.
Do you have like a personal ritual that you do? Like some people like to, light incense or candle and like say a prayer. Or, like, do you have
Hmm.
before you do a reading, do you have your own ritual?
Yes, I do. And it used to be before every reading, but then it got a little too much
Yeah.
because things, it's got a little intense, and sometimes
Hmm.
they are back to back, so it's like, okay, there's really no time. But so I just do it one global at the beginning of the day and then one at the end.
Hmm.
Beginning of the day, I do a prayer to my guardian angel, and we talk about it and
Hmm.
make sure that ask that there are no interferences through the day. That that the messages come clear, and that if there's any weird energy that wants to creep in, that please keep it out until we are
Hmm.
done.
Right.
And then
Awesome.
at the end of the day, I just say thank you for everything that happened and the good and bad and everything in between, because it's
Yep.
all part of the practice. So
Yep. Wonderful. That's awesome. Um, Now, what would you say? Okay, so you've shuffled, you picked your cards. What would you say would be like good questions to ask? Because there's probably better questions than others to ask. So what would be some
right.
examples of some good ones that people can start with?
So I would say that a very good question is, especially if somebody needs to make a decision,
Mm-hmm.
is what would be the outcome if I do this particular thing or if I don't do this particular thing. That's a good way of putting a question. A very wrong way of putting a question is, should I do this or should I not? Because the
Mm-hmm.
cards will set you straight and it's not going to be good.
Right.
So, because the important thing is always you have to make the decision.
Mm-hmm.
The cards can tell you what's going to happen by doing this or not doing this, but they are not going to tell you to do it or not to do it. That's your decision to make.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's where the cards become empowering, right? Like it's going to give you suggestions and say,
Hmm.
okay, I got my cat back here. Um, it's going to give you suggestions, but ultimately it's up to you to make that decision. You can
Hmm.
take that information, decide what you want to do with it. So it's really empowering in that way.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned the should questions aren't so good. What do you think about yes or no? Like how do you interpret those?
Yes or no? Yes, I do that. I do that sometimes, just for quick things, uh, nothing serious. But and the way I interpret the answer is if it is a positive card, an empowering card,
Mhm.
or something with good energy, that would be a yes.
Mhm.
If it's like Ten of Swords, everybody's dying, we're cutting heads, well, that's probably a
Yeah.
no.
That's a good interpretation there. And kind of on that note, like what's your advice if someone gets like one of those kind of scarier, I put it in quotes because they all have good messages, but some of them are a little more intense. And as you probably know, if you've done a
Mhm.
reading for someone and they see some of those cards and they're probably like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? Like what's your advice
Right.
as if you get one of those cards?
So let's remember that the cards are a cycle. So even when you get, for example, let's find the famous Ten of Swords that everybody's so scared about. So let's put it out there. There you
Yep.
are. Here you go. That's
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
nasty, right?
Whew,
There's
yeah.
not a lot of good coming out of this.
Right.
So, but what is the 10 really? Is the end of the cycles of the 1 through 10 of the minor, right?
Mhm.
So, yes, it can be a sad, dramatic event, but after it, we're going to have a 1 again, which is the new beginning.
Mm,
So we're going to have to go through pretty stressful events eventually in our life. There's no getting away. The the important thing is to how we approach that.
right.
So we can get really sad and just give up, or we can say, okay, today was a terrible day, but tomorrow we start over again
Right.
and we'll make it better. So I always like to see it as it's a step.
Mhm.
It's a step. It's there and it's going to be there whether we want it or not. But the important thing is that we know that it's happening, so we can be prepared for it. So
Right, exactly. That's what I think. Like knowledge is power, right? Like,
yeah,
okay.
so it's not a surprise.
And so this would be also a good time to probably draw another card or look at the surrounding cards to kind of see,
Hmm.
okay, so I got this card. Well, maybe I draw another one to know, okay, what do I do? How do I deal with it? How do
Hmm.
I prevent it maybe? Or, what do I need to know? Would you suggest
Right.
that?
Hmm.
And it would
Yes,
go ahead.
of course. And it doesn't come by itself, so it comes through in the context of a reading. So you know it depends what comes with it, and then the answer is going to be there. Of course,
Mhm.
if it's the final outcome of the reading and you get that card, it's like, well, things are not going to end up very well, but
Right.
on this particular question. But maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe
Mm.
if it comes, for example, somebody is looking for how am I doing at work, and you get the card, well, you're probably going to get fired because this is not it's not great. But what if you were supposed to change job anyway, and you weren't doing it because you were afraid, and so you
Right.
needed a little push that came in the form of getting fired, and then the next week we go out and you get your dream job, or you start your
Right.
own business you know
Yes, yes, I love
so
that. It's all in the perspective and it's just kind of looking at it from a different way. I love that. That's really helpful. So, what would you say? I feel like a lot of tarot experts always have like a favorite card. What's your favorite card in the deck?
I have two.
Okay.
So one is the wheel,
That's a good
and
one.
I like the wheel because it's a reminder that life is a cycle. We go through things, and there's always going to be ups and downs. Also, it comes pretty much at the middle of the major, which is 22. This wheel is number 10. So it's kind of like almost in the middle. And so it is a very balanced point between the beginning of life and what it's and the later part of life. I think
Mhm.
it's a very good card that keeps people balanced and keeps me grounded. It's like with a very grounded way of seeing how life is going. you
Yep.
know Celebrations for success are great, but I know that it's not always going to be a party. So, but then again, when it's like, okay, things are really going bad. Well, okay, now, but next week or next month or tomorrow is going to be better. So,
Right.
and then my other one is the devil card, which in
Mm.
this deck is pretty strong.
Yeah.
It's a strong figure. I like it because I think it's very important because it's a card that talks about great passions, but also great opportunities, but also great obsessions. And so it's a reminder that yes, there are great opportunities in our life, and it's good to be very passionate about things, but it is not good to become obsessed to a level that is unhealthy.
Right. Yes. Good advice.
So
I
these are
love
my
that.
two
That's so
favorite cards.
interesting. I love that. Very cool. Okay, and we talked about, so you would say, would you recommend the Rider Waite for beginners or somebody who's never worked with tarot?
Yes, I would
Okay.
definitely recommend it because it is going to be much, much easier to start reading. For example, 10 of
Mhm.
Cups right here, you already see a happy scene, so you know that is a
Right.
happy card.
Right.
Otherwise, you probably would not have an idea. Two
Yeah.
of Wands, again, you can see it's a card of research, maybe making a choices of things. So that's right there.
Right.
So otherwise, you would need a lot more study, a lot more patience to learn, remember the meanings of, for example, the Four of Swords right here. Who
Yeah,
knows,
that
right?
doesn't even look like swords.
That doesn't give out many, interpretations. You don't know unless you
Right.
know. So that takes a little bit more patience and time. It's
Right.
doable, but
Yep.
I would not recommend it for a complete beginner.
Okay. Yeah. And I like the Rider Waite. I think it's, and I've heard that from several people that it's a good beginner one
Hmm.
to use, and it's kind of that quintessential standard in the tarot community. Um,
Hmm.
so I asked you about your favorite cards. Your favorite deck? Do you use the first? Is it the, what was it again, the first one you talked about, the Italian one,
So I use the
the
this,
Marseille?
well, no, I don't use this one
Uh huh.
because it's just for ornament,
Uh huh. Yeah, it is
decoration
beautiful.
for collections, beautiful pictures, beautiful
Yeah.
paintings, but I it's not practical, huge cars like so.
Right.
My favorite, so I use different ones. I use this one for myself when
Mhm.
I read for myself, which is the ancient Italian
Ancient Italian. Okay,
deck.
cool.
The pictures talk to me a lot. They're
Uh-huh.
very chatty. I feel we have a great connections. But I don't use it for clients. For clients, I use this other one, which is kind of the same,
Mhm.
but it's more a little older as
Mhm.
design, a little more medieval almost.
Yeah.
And what I find with this one is a lot simpler. There's not a lot picture in it, but it triggers scenes in my mind.
Mm.
So when I'm doing a reading, and for example, I get this card, which is the Six of Wands, which is like it's also a little tricky to look at because it can be confused very easily.
Yeah.
Um, you may not see a lot, but what I see is probably a scene where there is somebody writing or somebody doing something creative and being successful at it. And in fact, one of the meanings of this card is uh, a profession in the arts.
Mm.
So,
Interesting. Yeah, it was interesting with that deck too. It's probably like the first thought that came to mind when you showed me that when you're working with clients is that they can't really interpret what that means. Like
mhm.
they're not going to look at, like, I mean, I don't know what like the death card, for example, would look like in that deck, but
Oh
they
yeah. Oh, it's pretty dramatic. The
Okay.
deck.
Maybe
Yeah,
not.
it's pretty ugly actually.
Okay. So they're probably like, I don't know what that means, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and again, the deck card is not that bad actually. It does also in this deck. Oh, important thing that you mentioned. That's really good. It doesn't have a name, so the death
Yeah.
card they put the name later on in more modern decks. This
Uh-huh.
one in the traditional ones, of course, is the last one, right? There you go. It only says 13.
Oh, yeah, that's that's not a very nice looking card.
Yeah,
It looks like
yeah, it's
death.
really
It
ugly.
does.
It's really ugly. But anyway,
Yeah, okay, that's so interesting. But again, the death card is not a bad card. I mean,
it is not. It's the card
yeah,
of transformations. And
right.
so it's actually a pretty exciting one to see. It means
Yeah,
things are going to um, move on and grow and,
right. Exactly. Exactly. So, how would you recommend for people just starting out how would they incorporate tarot into their everyday practice? Like, what would you recommend? Maybe pulling, maybe just a card of the day, or what would you recommend?
Mhm. Yes, I would definitely do, which I do
Hmm.
every day. I pull one card
Hmm.
and see how that resonates with my day and what I'm feeling. And yeah, that's an excellent way to do it. Very simple, doesn't take a lot of time,
Hmm.
and it works. And so,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Great. And now you
mhm.
mentioned spreads too. Um,
Yes.
And there's, simple ones like one card, three card spread to more
Mhm.
complicated. Well, I wouldn't say complicated, but more in depth as a Celtic cross. Is that what you usually
Right.
do for clients, the Celtic cross
I
or?
do. I do not use that one.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's pretty intense.
I did at some point, but I grew tired of it, and
Mhm.
it's just something that always comes up and really okay, yeah, it works, it's
Mhm.
excellent, but it's not fun for me to look at. So
Uh-huh.
I do other things. I usually do a 7 card. It depends how long the reading is.
Mhm.
If it's just a short 15-minute session, usually a 7 spread, like a horseshoe shape, that's more than enough
Mhm.
to cover everything. More in depth, there's a 15 card spread that I use, which is pretty good. That you know takes a while to go through. And then if we really have like the longer session, an hour or so, we can do a pyramid, and that is a lot. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. So you probably maybe to start out, you could do the card of the day and then maybe do a three card spread. Like, I know past, present, future is a big one with
yeah,
three card. Or um, what else? Like with three cards, if you were not doing past, present, future, like how would you read that particular spread?
you could do what I need to keep or keep doing or keep in my life, what I need to let go, and
Mhm.
then random suggestion, uh,
Yeah.
and then or what's what's the outcome of this, what's the outcome of that, how can I choose between this decision or the other one, because the
Mhm.
third card is usually the one that helps really
Mhm.
gives an idea on how to make the choice. So
Right.
that's a very important one. And then there's a lot that also on the internet for 3 cards. There's
Uh-huh.
probably 100 type of
Right.
spreads that can, that can be done. So yeah,
Mhm.
this really sky's the limit there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So yeah, if anybody's listening, if you're wanting to start out, maybe just do the card of the day. Maybe you just start with some three card spreads and
Mhm.
look up a couple different examples. I think that'd be a good way to just kind of ease into
Yeah, three
it.
cards is good, and it's enough to cover a lot of things.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think this is a very good way of starting.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So, I'd like to end with just, if you had just one piece of advice to give with tarot, if it's just one thing that you want our listeners to know, what would you say?
Say be open.
Hmm.
Be open to the suggestion. Be open to the ideas that come to mind while reading the cards. The cards have a lot to say. We just need to be open and accepting of what they have to say. It is very hard sometimes to do that because, especially when it happens to me all the time when I'm reading for myself, I don't like what's coming up. And so I tend to, oh, I did it wrong, or,
Right. I'm gonna do it again. Yeah.
yeah, I'll do it again. Well,
Yeah.
you know, that's not a way to do it. It's just like,
Right.
okay,
Right.
it is what it is, and we need to
Right.
be open and accept, what comes up, because
Yes.
that's the way we grow. So,
Yes, absolutely. That's really, really good advice. I think that's good
mhm,
for anything in life. Here comes the kitties.
right. Hello.
Hello. She's like very excited about this conversation. She wants to get in
Good.
on it.
Yeah, I bet.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Francesco? Oh my goodness.
So, well, I wish everybody would read cards because I think it would be very helpful.
Yes,
So
yes.
I really encourage everybody to do it. They don't need to go to somebody to do it. It
Mhm.
helps because it's hard to read for yourself, but it's a great practice to do by yourself. Um, and it's a wonderful, wonderful tool to really read how life is going.
Right.
And I do on my Instagram account, I do a card of the day in my
Mm.
stories so people can go and see what I find about the day and
Uh-huh.
see how that applies to them. And if
Awesome.
they want to comment or, have a different interpretation, they're welcome to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that's something,
Oh,
yeah, that
fun.
I'm open to.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. Okay, great. Yeah, so that was gonna let everybody know how to contact you because I think also if you're interested in tarot, I think a great way to start is to get a reading from somebody. Get
Right.
have somebody do one for you.
Hmm.
So definitely I encourage everyone to check out Francesco's website, which is www.tarotofnewyork.com. And you have your social media. You're at Tarot of New York, and you're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, and YouTube channel as well. So that's
That's
awesome.
right.
And I'm super impressed. You've got a couple of books out as well. And you have the August, October, and November 2020 tarot scopes. Tell us real quick about those. That's really interesting.
So, yeah, the Taroscopes idea came up because I was getting a lot of messages for people that wanted to get a little bit of a quick, easy reading for the month to come.
Hmm.
And so, but, they weren't able to afford a full reading or, time or things like that. So it's like, I'll just do a general things through the signs,
Hmm.
and so I'll put them all in. So if you're in design, this is your month.
Oh, I love
And
that.
then, yeah, I just pulled it out and it went well for a while. So I don't know if I'll keep doing it or I'll do something different,
Hmm.
but I'm still playing with that and see how that goes. So,
Awesome. Yeah, well, that sounds really cool. I love the combination of like astrology and tarot.
mhm.
I need to go check that out. So those are available as Kindle books on Amazon. So definitely check those out. And Francesco, he's in New York City, but he serves clients all over the world. So if you are interested in booking a session with Francesco, he offers a couple different links. So it looks like there's anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, and you can do those by phone, video, and probably are you seeing clients right now in person if they're in Manhattan?
I occasionally I have two clients that I see in person about once a month,
Uh-huh.
but that's it for now. It's
Mm-hmm.
mostly on the phone or through Zoom.
Okay.
I think that Zoom works really well.
Yeah.
But I wish we could do more in person, but right now it's not really the case. So
Yep. Yep.
we'll
I
take them
know.
again when times change. So I wanted to offer to your listeners
Yeah.
a coupon code. Um, I think it's Spirituality 2021, and
Okay.
that's they can put that. in the when doing a booking, there's going to be a little slot that says you have a voucher or a code. You put that spirituality 2021, you get 40% off.
Oh,
That's
wow. That's awesome. Oh my gosh. Yes. Thank you so much. Wow. That's an amazing
Mhm,
coupon there. That's awesome. So, all of
mhm.
you, I encourage you, book a reading with Francesco. He's amazing. And so, the best way would be to go to his website, www.tarotofnewyork.com, and just book your session online. And I wanted to mention too that don't forget to join the Spirituality Simplified Facebook group. So we have a new community where we can all come together and talk about the episodes and interact and ask questions. And Francesco has so graciously agreed to be on next week's Wednesday's live Q&A session to talk about the episode today. So that'll be next Wednesday, December 23rd. So definitely check out the Facebook group and join. We'll be, answering any questions and maybe doing like a quick 5-minute reading for anybody who has any questions they'd like to ask. So join that group. And again, if you can't make the live session, that's okay. You can see the replay anytime in the group. And you can send your questions ahead of time if you know you're not going to be able to make it live. So we'll be sure to answer those during the live session. So that link, I'll put that in the show description, is facebook.com/groups/spirituality simplified podcast. And again, I'll include that link and all of Francesco's information in the show description. So, thank you so much again, Francesco. Thank you so much to everybody listening and any of the YouTube watchers as well. I really hope that this episode brought some clarity and inspires you to give tarot a try because it really can change your life, right, Francesco?
Absolutely. Yes, 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 absolutely.
Awesome. And I just wanted to remind everyone to stay tuned for next week's episode, which I'll be doing. It's kind of a little different. I'm going to be doing a winter solstice kind of meditation ritual that you can follow along with or, kind of make it your own. So that'll be really fun. So I'm going to do a little bit early next week since the solstice is on Monday, I believe. So you'll get next week's episode out a little bit early. So definitely check that out. So thanks again, and remember to keep it spiritual, but keep it simple. Thanks. See you next time.
Thank you.